I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on GBM, we're diving into an inspiring and heartfelt spiritual journey with an amazing book. It is called One Man's Life Touched by Jesus, and it's written by a terrific author. His name is James Doyle Brandt. This powerful Christian memoir follows one man's lifelong walk with faith through military service, business ventures, personal struggles, and ultimate spiritual awakening. It is an uplifting testament to the transformative power of belief, prayer, and trusting in God's timing. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Jim, great to see you here today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
It is my pleasure. This is such a wonderful, faith-filled book. Let's start at the beginning. Your upbringing, your childhood years. How did that shape your understanding of faith?
That's interesting. I After I was only about a year and a half old, my mother divorced my father, and my father was an alcoholic, and I ran into problems there.
Hmm.
But anyway, I ended up being a judge ruled that I had to stay with someone else for 6 months, and then my mother remarried, and that's who I consider my real father, is the one that she remarried, and their family was so strong spiritually. His family. I hope I'm not too confusing.
No, no,
And
I understand.
yeah, and so I grew up. I stayed there with them, and then I grew up with my father, and had a strong Christian upbringing at the very beginning of my life. And as I
Right.
said in the book, I got away from it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's
That's what
easy
my
to do, and I think all of us do at one point, stray off the path of the straight and narrow. And then we realize that life is much harder when you stray off that path that has been laid out for us by the Lord, don't you think?
Yes, yeah, I
Mm.
do.
Yeah.
And it was really strange because when I was 6 years old, I was staying at my grandparents' house way up in Hayfort in Northern California, way up in the mountains. And I was sleeping with my sister, who's 2 years younger than I am.
Mhm.
And we're sleeping in a travel trailer that's beside my grandparents' house because my sister and I really wanted to stay in it.
Yeah.
And we were in it that night. And then I had this vision of Jesus coming, and I saw him and everything, and it just rocked me. And when I talked to my grandfather the next morning, he told me that a cow had bumped into the trailer that night, and that's what caused it, and not to think about it. So I let it go. I was so young, I was 6 years old. But several
Right.
years later, all of a sudden, I was at Sunday school, and we went through uh, the when Jesus comes in the end, and it was the exact image that I saw in the dream.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, everything came. Anyway, I hope I didn't take too long to
No, no, no,
explain that.
no. It's very, very interesting. And I do think that children have open minds, open hearts, and they're much more able, willing to believe and to see the Lord when he presents himself. So I don't think that's surprising at all. And I think it's wonderful that you had that connection at an early age. Um, your time in the Marine Corps, how did
Mhm.
that influence your spiritual growth and your spiritual journey?
Boy, that's an interesting one because I didn't want to go in the Marine Corps. What happened was the Vietnam War was going on, and I was in college, and I didn't take enough units my last semester to avoid the draft. And
Mm.
so I was afraid I was going to go in the draft. And I was using football to get through college. That was the only way I could pay for it. So the Army and the Navy, you can't go into their reserves and play a sports, and they conflict with each other.
Mm.
And the Marine Corps was the only service that allowed you to go 6 weeks during 2 summers instead of during the school year. So it didn't interfere with my football or my college at all. And my father hated the Marine Corps. He was in the Army during World War II and Korea. And I talked to him and he said, no, go ahead and do it. And that he would support me the whole way. So that's how I ended up in the Marine Corps. It wasn't because I wanted to go in. That was my only option.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a tough time. There were few options back then, particularly if the school deferment wasn't working out. It looked like
Yeah.
the draft into the Army was the only other option. So you went into the Marine Corps. How long did you spend in the Marine Corps?
It was a total of 8 years.
Wow.
And yeah, but the reason was because when I went through the 2 summers, that went fine. And then when I went to my basic school after I graduated, the day I graduated, the Marine Corps sent me to Quantico, Virginia. And when I went through that, I had 3 awful experiences going through the 6 months of that. The first one was my wife was pregnant and she was having complications with the pregnancy.
Mm.
And the Marine Corps has this magic moment and they require the wives to be there.
Mm.
And back in 1971, the Marine Corps could tell your wife what to do. That was before 78 when the laws were changed.
Right.
And they told her she had to go to this magic moment when they shot off all the cannons and the aircraft came and dropped bombs and stuff all around us and everything.
Mhm.
And she had a miscarriage that night.
Mm.
And so that was the first thing that happened. And it just discouraged me. And then my my father, my real father, passed away, and I didn't know about it for 6 months later because his family couldn't get a hold of me. They didn't know how to reach me, and finally they did through the Marine Corps. And so I went to my commanding officer and I asked if I could have a little break to go spend with his family. And he said, no, you have to stay and finish. And I was so frustrated. And then we had a night compass march where you're by yourself in the middle of the night hiking. And I was going to these checkpoints and leaving my card at each checkpoint so they knew that I made it to those checkpoints. And then I had an appendicitis attack. And I thought I was going to die, but this Jeep came by and took me to the hospital. And so then I just had it with the Marine Corps. And
Yeah.
yeah, so then
Years is a long time.
they gave me the option of going to flight school. See, I
Mm.
didn't plan to be able, and I'd never flown before. I was the
Yeah.
only person going through flight school that'd never flown before. So that's how I ended up being. Anyway, I'm sorry it took so long, but
No, no, no. It's an interesting part of your journey, no doubt. We touched upon this before that some people lose their faith or stray from the straight and narrow or lose their way a little bit in middle life. Why do you think that is?
you get so wrapped up in your own what you're trying to do, and you think how important it is to get this or that or the other thing. I realized that years later, but at the time, it seemed my priorities were just all screwed up. You know, I wanted to make money and get ahead and not have to worry about things, and I didn't realize I really didn't have to worry about things anyway.
Exactly. It's all in God's hands. Yeah, without a
Yes.
doubt. Your second marriage really sparked something in you, helped reignite your relationship with God. Tell us about how that relationship impacted your relationship with God.
Yeah, the company, I was partners in a company, and we had a lot of our software, it was a software development company, and a lot of our software developers were in the Philippines.
Mhm.
And I would go to the Philippines twice a year for, several weeks at a time. And my wife was an employee of the company over there in the Philippines. That's how I met her. When
Mhm.
I got there one time, my plane landed early and I couldn't check into my hotel until like 2 in the afternoon. And so she told me to stay in her office. That's the first time I'd met her.
Mhm.
And then and I'd been single for over 20 years. I wasn't looking to do anything, and it just sparked when I met her in person. And then I was with her several times after that and actually went and visited her family eventually. And that's how. I don't know. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that you answered how you met, but it also helped renew your faith as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. She was so, her family was so strong. And that's an interesting thing because they are a Seventh-day Adventist. Now, my father taught me, he was my role model, and he taught me that it didn't matter which Protestant church you went to because he worked for the state of California as an engineer. And we got transferred and had to move a lot when I was growing up. When we switched to a different town, normally we were a Baptist, but sometimes we had to join a different church because they didn't have a Baptist church in that town. And he said that doesn't matter. It's the faith and it's you and God and directly and you want to be around people. So that's the way I was brought up. So she was brought up that the Seventh Day Adventist is really important, and so I went to her church after we got married. I started going Seventh Day Adventist, but I didn't join it for several years later till some things happened.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, like your father said, it doesn't matter what the church is. What matters is what's in your heart and your relationship with God and the
Yes.
Lord. That's what truly matters. What do you hope readers take away from your book? What do you hope they learn? And what does it mean to be touched by Jesus?
Yeah, I hope that they don't take as long as I did to
Mhm.
figure out things and to realize when things happen. Like a critical time in my life was when Paradise, California is where I lived the majority of my time growing up. And all of a sudden my dad got transferred to Southern California and I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay in Paradise. I was playing football. I thought I was going to get a good scholarship out of there and I thought it'd all be ruined if I had to move to Southern California. I didn't think I could compete down there, down here, and so forth. But I was walking along this road the last day before my parents were moving, and it just struck me that I've got to move. And so I talked to my dad and I said, "Yeah, I'll go." Because we had arranged I could have stayed with a friend of mine's family and stayed in Paradise. And so then I went ahead and moved. I couldn't figure it out. It was walking along that road and it just hit me and that I've got to go. And so I went, but I couldn't play football. It was my senior year. I couldn't play just 1 year and compete in Southern California. And so I didn't go out for football. I worked, my mother was a waitress at a restaurant. She got me a job as a dishwasher. And then all of a sudden I got this image one night and it said, play for the team. That was the image, play for the team. And the next morning the coach called me in, even though this is after school started, missed practice, senior year, it doesn't make any sense. And he said that my coach from Paradise had called him and said that he should get me on the team. And then they had an injury with one of the linebackers on the team. And anyway, long story short, I ended up quitting the job at the restaurant and playing football that night. And I met some of my best friends that are still my best friends to this day on that
Wonderful.
football team. And in the play for the team. So when I was in Paradise, I kept trying to get this scholarship to Stanford. So I was always trying to make myself look good. And I tried to do everything well, when I was in LA, I didn't do that. I tried to help everybody else look good. And because I thought it doesn't make any difference, it's too late for me. You can't start your senior year down here. And then it worked out. I ended up getting the scholarship and everything.
Amazing.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, amazing what happens when you put yourself in the Lord's hands. If you do play
Yes.
for the team rather than playing for yourself, it's really, really important. And it'll be a game changer in people's lives if they embrace that philosophy as well. The name of the book we've been talking about today is One Man's
The
Life Touched by Jesus, The Spiritual Growth of One Ordinary Man. It is a story of rediscovery, grace, and transformation. Jim, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Such a wonder talking to you today. Really enjoyed our conversation. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford for the Global Book Network. So long for now.